Alright, so today we're going to be discussing the two firearms that I have made and posted to Patreon. I should note that one, this isn't scripted. 2, it is 12 a.m. 3, I am sick, so if I sound congested or anything like that, that is why. The first gun that I posted, both of these are European or Euro Imperial Empire weapons, EIE. The first one I call the Lee. It is a standard, the standard issue bolt-action rifle of the Imperial military, heavily based off the Lee Enfield. It is not a super exotic weapon. It is just your standard run-of-the-mill bolt-action rifle, a removable mag, or I should just say a mag system, a dual iron sight system, which I'll explain shortly, and a fairly good range, effective range about 100 yards. The dual iron sight system is kind of unique to Imperial weapons, and they continued it on through most of their semi-automatic rifles after the Lee No. 2, up until they started really going for automatic weapons. The Lee has two iron sights, has one on the rail above the bolt-action system, the receiver. That's main iron sight, and then it has a backup sight underneath the rail, on top of the receiver, but under the main iron sight. This was a good idea, but not practical in practice. The idea of it was that the main iron sight was used for shooting at 100 yards. Since this weapon was built for trench warfare, they took the average range in between each trench and estimated it to be about 100 yards. The backup sight was intended for 50 yards and under, that halfway mark. It wasn't used. Most of these soldiers were basic enlisted soldiers and not trained marksmen, so they just stuck with the main iron sight and it worked. But the Imperials insisted on continuing the trend through most of their semi-automatic weapons until they started going to fully automatic ARs and stuff, and then they went for single sights that had a wider field of view, a tiny backup sight being inefficient for a backup weapon. The second gun that I have made and posted to Patreon, the SP-10. The SP-10 is the SMG of the Imperials. It is cheap, it is easy to produce, it fires a large 10mm round, it has a rate of fire of about 500 RPM, a 36 round magazine, a collapsible stock, the ability to have a suppressor, all these neat little things. It is a very manipulatable gun and is very cheap. However, during the war, these were only given out to officers, tank crew, and special ops. It was not given to the standard infantrymen. One of the reasons being that this gun did not have a very good range. It had a range of about 45 yards. I don't know why that cut. Anyways, the SP-10 only had an effective range of about 45 yards before it started heavily dropping and losing velocity. It had a slower rate of fire, but most soldiers had never shot an automatic weapon in their massive reserve force, so they figured that they'd stick with the Lee as the main weapon. It wasn't a very exotic looking weapon, though they did make a model, the SP-10R, that was for the Royal Guard, that featured a vertical mag with a longer body and a more refined look. However, the SP-10s were just given out to officers that wanted them and tank crew. It was more of a backup weapon than a primary weapon. In the wars that they were fighting in these massive open fields, with all this trench warfare going on, the SP-10 was not a gun that was going to fit the role of the soldier. And that is why they went for the Lee over the SP-10, but the SP-10 was still a very good SMG, that's why they kept it in service. And it went on for a long service life, and was used by officers, a more updated variant of it, for quite a few years after the war. Very just easy to use gun, easy to pick up, easy to understand. And if it wasn't for the style of fighting that the Imperials went for, this gun very easily could have gone in as the main gun of the Imperial military. With its lightness, it's easy to produce ammo, it's easy to produce parts, but with that limited range of 45 yards, and most soldiers not being trained with automatic weapons, and it really just not being a good long-range warfare weapon, that is why they took the Lee over it. Both guns are in service during aircorps on the main weapon. The Lee will be seen the most. The SP-10 will be seen in the hands of officers and tank crew and special ops. The SP-10 also has the ability to be suppressed with subsonic ammunition to make it extremely quiet. But this was only really given to special forces, spec ops, kind of spies and such, sabotage units, or since the Imperials are based off of the British, you could say commando kind of style guys. It is, but that'll be kind of a rare case. The SP-10 does have a very unique mag sticking off the side, angled a bit to the left-hand side. It acts as a foregrip and as the actual mag receiver system, and it has a very small package except for that mag. The stock can be folded down. The charging handle can be folded down. It has a dust cover for the ejection system for the shells. Its name is escaping me on the receiver. Just that mag sticks out a little bit, but with the mag removed, it's got a very small silhouette. And that's the main reason why they gave it to guys that weren't in the front lines, or it wasn't their main weapon. It was small enough that a tank commander could have it with him inside the tank, and it wouldn't get in the way, unlike a Lee rifle. Although a lot of these guys just took handguns because they're much smaller, and then an officer could have it with him on his side, or slinged around his side, and it wouldn't be getting in the way of him having to move around and command units, where a Lee rifle would be much heavier and would get in the way. There was designs for a bayonet, but this really never went into service. It was hard to mount to the gun, and it wasn't worth it with this tiny weapon. If someone got in knife range, you still had this small package weapon that could put out, these large rounds at a fairly decent rate of fire. So they never went for it with the bayonet. The bayonets were all for the Lee rifle. So those are the two guns that I have worked on. My checklist is, for the Imperial faction, is get their Bren gun. You can't have a faction based off the British of the World War I, World War II era without a Bren gun, so I'm going to make a Bren gun, but obviously change it up. The SP-10 obviously is based off of the Sten Mach II and the M3 grease gun. And then the Lee is obviously based off the Lee Enfield. So the Bren, their machine gun will be based off the Bren gun. I don't know how I'm going to change it up yet, but I think I'm just not going to look at any pictures of it really, get the base design and then look at pictures. That should help me kind of give it a more unique look, so I'm not following the blueprints too closely. And then I'm going to work on I don't know what I'm going to work on next. I might do the Germanium rifle next. But I might do the Russo SMG next. And as I make these guns, will do these videos explaining them. This came out at almost 10 minutes. So, yeah, this coming in about, it's at 9 minutes and 30 seconds right now. So each video will probably be about 5 minutes, just explaining the gun and its service in the story of aircorps and the world of aircorps. It might be longer, might be shorter, depending on the weapon. But I plan to have these guns fairly detailed within the world. Not to the point where I'm listing the size of screws that they had in them, but just enough that people can get an understanding of why this gun is here, what are its flaws, what are its weaknesses. For example, the SP-10, because it fires a large round, has a lot of recoil. And also explaining the names, which I forgot to do. Lee is called, all names are subject to change, because I'm not the best at names. Lee is called the Lee because I based it off the Lee engine. The SP-10 is small pistol 10 for 10 millimeter. I realized after naming that that means a pistol but smaller, so it should probably be called the LP-10 for large pistol, but I'm going to keep SP-10 for right now, because I was originally just going to call it SMG-10, but that was boring and unoriginal, so it is the SP-10 for the moment. It might change. And if I remember to edit this properly, there will be screenshots of all the renders and screenshots and renders of the guns flashing throughout the screen. The larger rifle that's mostly wood is the Lee. The smaller one that's mostly metal is the SP-10. So yeah, next one should be on the Imperial light machine gun. Then I'll do whatever gun I do after that. These kind of come and go. And then I will probably start doing these on the tanks as well that I have, explaining the tanks and their philosophy. So, as usual, all feedback is welcomed and required at this point. Anything that I can change, anything I can do better, anything I'm doing right, or anything I'm doing wrong, let me know.